I was born ready. In the den with the lions and wolves, everybody was together, and then all of a sudden, out came me. There was thunder and there was lightning, baby. And then the clouds, they cracked open in the heavens, and the finger came down and it said, this boy right here will be somebody one day, and he would go forth and he would win the WCW championship belt, and then he would take it to the people, baby. He would take it to the people.
And welcome to our show.
I'm really in like the Dusty thing because it's the only voice I've been able to like do, you know.
Right.
I can't do any. I can do woo for Flair, you know, and that's about it, you know. I can't, brother, you know. Who else has got good voice, yo? Oh hell yeah! Well, let me tell you something.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah. Yes, the Macho Man. I can do that, and Kane loves it. He's just like. Never seen the Macho Man in his life.
So, officially, welcome to Powerbomb Weekly. We are starting on time. We've got a great show for you. I've got a couple surprises for him that I'm going to shock him with. We're going to play Do You Know Who This Wrestler Used to Be? We don't have an actual pay-per-view. We actually called each other on Friday. We're like, Are we missing a show? Because it doesn't seem like we've reviewed enough.
I did the rundown, and I cross-referenced what he watches to what I watch. I was like, I feel like we're missing something. And then... So, I'm going to put this out to the world. For many, many years now, I have tried to locate what I feel is the greatest wrestling match I've ever seen in my life. I know that it took place in New Japan. Oh, yeah. I know that Daniel Bryan might have been on the card. The problem is that I saw this being broadcast online, waiting, like in a queue waiting room, for the next show to start. So people were just, whoever was hosting the site was just popping in matches and letting them run. It's one of the greatest matches I've ever seen, so I've taken it upon myself to actually start going through Wrestle Kingdom's lineup, and from 1992 all the way through somewhere around 2007-ish or so, and trying to really target 2004 to 2006 when Daniel Bryan was really there, to try and locate this match. And I think because I've been watching so much of these random, 2.5-minute clips of New Japan, that I just thought that we just missed a bunch of stuff that we should have watched this week. And I still haven't found it.
And a fun fact, this is one of the first conversations we actually had about wrestling when we talked about doing this show.
Yeah, it's the greatest match I've ever seen in my life, and I couldn't tell you who was in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, let's go ahead and start the show officially. We got our amazing intro. Kevin did a great job for the audio, and I spiced it up a little bit.
Ooh. Does Kevin know that you're sticking your hands in the...
You should.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Powerbomb Weekly, broadcasting live from a bunker somewhere in Poulsbo. On tonight's show, we're talking about the gimmick before the gimmick. And now here's your hosts. The real-life inspiration for CM Punk, Michael Burnett. And his co-host, the real-life inspiration for Awesome Kong, here's Joey Marcello. Okay, wait a minute. That was a cheap shot.
What does everybody want?
And then El Snow. Let's kick off the show.
Great job, as always, Kevin. And you know what? That was a good little spice of adding in some mixing board there. Yeah, I don't think he'll be too upset with you fingering his soup.
Yes, we'll just see whether or not we got cease and desist for the music rights.
Oh, man.
I tried to keep it down low enough and kind of... Yeah. So here's the thing I'm gonna just throw at you without any prior knowledge.
All right.
So I was checking out the Facebook earlier today, and I was noticing that Ian was traveling to California.
Ooh.
And he was complaining about how Gold Coast was once again not buying into the bear system. So he said he might have to bring a person or two down there and actually make some business.
Really?
So if Gold Coast is going to be featured, we'd absolutely love to watch you guys do your show again, and we would absolutely love to review it. And Ian, as always, you are welcome on the show anytime.
Yes, I would love to check that out, man. And yeah, Gold Coast, that was one of the most fun, indie shows, and I don't mean that derogatory. It was just one of the most fun wrestling shows that we got to watch in a long time. It was great to see that young talent. I mean, and at the end of it, Alexander at the end. I mean, that guy just popped up again in a big match that we could talk about.
Yeah, great
talent down there, guys.
I believe my friend Bill, and I'm sorry if it's not Bill, but my fellow Bill Olson, he used to be a referee back in Hawaii, used to train with my son. He now does some independent stuff in the South. And I swear it was one of his Federation's heat tracks. It's going to be Hammerstone versus Austin Aries. Austin Aries has popped back up.
Yes, this is the one I was talking about. I was hoping that we would get to watch. So yes, Austin Aries and Hammer, man, that would be great. And of course, Ian, I'm still waiting on my DVD. I ordered it at Christmas, and then I had to put in a troubleshoot track on it from Amazon from the fulfillment center, and I just haven't gotten anything back, man. So. Where is my DVD for the Bear System?
All right, so the gimmick behind the gimmick. We're going to play a little game with this. So basically, I'm going to, for the next 20 minutes or so, maybe...
He's going to embarrass me because I've spent the last week trying to relearn algebra as a almost 40-year-old for my new work, and
but you're the historian, right? I'm the data geek. You're the historian.
My answer is going to be x equals 1/4 over 7/8.
So... the first gimmick that I'm just going to give you, I just want to talk about real quick.
Okay.
The gimmick before the gimmick. And it's kind of an interesting one. Scott Steiner. Most people remember the Genetic Freak.
Yes.
But Scott Steiner used to have a very different look and a very different gimmick before he became the Genetic Freak. He used to tag with his brother, Rick, and they used to look like varsity wrestlers.
Yes.
He had dark black hair.
Yes.
Rick was not the Junkyard, the Mad Dog, or...
he
always had the...
He was the dog-faced gremlin.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It was the dog-faced gremlin, yeah.
And he had the wrestling gear, hat.
It's the ear protectors that you wear for the headgear.
And he always was like barking at the people, but that was his first gimmick. And shout out that his son is at the Performance Center.
They did. He will be going to the Performance Center. He's part of the next class. That is up on our page if you want to scroll through and check that post of the new Performance Center class that's going to be dropping.
So, let's go with an easy one.
Okay.
The Blade Runners. Who were they?
Well, the Blade Runners, unfortunately, is Jim Hellwig, who's no longer with us, who is famous for being the Ultimate Warrior, and the Stinger, who might no longer be with us after next month.
So the interesting thing about them is when they showed up to WCW in their first two matches, they were nearly fired on the spot for being absolute terrible wrestlers who could barely move in the ring, and they were seen as low-rent rip-offs of the Road Warriors.
The Road Warriors, yes, this is accurate. And on top of that, they were not good. And I believe on our page I might have put up an old match between them and I think is it like Lawler and them?
Something like that.
Whatever it was, it's a Mid-South match. And yeah, you can see it was just
Okay. So for many years, a mysterious masked man roamed North American circuit known as the Generic Luchador, El Generico. He won many titles in his long career before officially retiring to run an orphanage in Mexico just days before his appearance. And a young man named Sami Zayn appeared in the WWE's developmental territory, claiming to be the protege
of El Generico. So
I have never seen El Generico wrestle as El Generico. So what do you have to say about?
I've watched El Generico. I mean, he did a couple shots for, I would say he mainly did like, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, a couple other places like that.
Ring of Honor?
Ring of Honor would be a huge spot for him. I always liked El Generico. I thought he was fine, and seeing him come in and be altered into this Sami Zayn character that they have, especially now, I mean, I kind of take a shit on it every time he comes up, but realistically, he's probably their best heel on the show right now next to Roman.
Yeah. No, I will agree. All right, so this dark voodoo priest showed up in the 90s, had high-profile feuds with the Ultimate Warrior and the Undertaker, and then he disappeared because the gimmick was ridiculous and he wasn't a very good wrestler in the first place.
We would later go on to know this man as the Godfather, Papa Shango, many other gimmicks that he has inhabited over the years. The Godfather would probably be the one that stuck the most.
Oh, the Good Father.
Yeah. The sad thing is I can't remember his name now. And
I don't have his name.
You don't have his name, but yes, Godfather was Papa Shango, and the easiest way you can tell is he's had those tattoos forever, and he is also now the proud owner of a very successful strip club.
Who is the freaking Deacon?
freaking Deacon.
The freaking Deacon didn't do much note under this gimmick other than draw the attention of WWE officials due to his massive size. As a result, they turned him into the fake version of Kane and then made him a pig slopper named Festus.
Festus, oh man.
Now known as?
I've got it all connected except the name, and that's killing me.
He went on to New Japan, became one of the founding members of the Bullet Club, and is now the Impact Tag Team Champion known as Luke Gallows.
Luke Gallows, yes.
So before, this is an easy one, before he was...
I kept wanting to say Luke Jacobs because of Glenn Jacobs, but yes.
So before Steve Austin was a badass, he was a pretty prima donna blonde named Stunning Steve Austin.
Who was in an amazing tag team with Brian Pillman called the Hollywood Blondes, where they would do this thing. And the Stunner was called the Stun Gun, and it was the big top rope where they drop him back and drop him on the rope across they neck him across it. That was their finisher was the Stun Gun.
Which is now his son, Pillman Jr.'s son, is in AEW as the Hollywood Blondes.
Part of the, So it all comes full circle.
This one I thought was very interesting.
Which Steve's interesting before you move on.
Yeah.
Because there's three, I think for WWE, there's three people that we could say that, I don't want to say got made, but if there's the three founders of what we have now as a product, we would have Austin, Rock, and H, right? Austin is brought in as the ringmaster.
Right.
He's admitted, he said the gimmick sucked, he hated it, but it was the way to get his foot in the door, and then he slowly morphed that into Stone Cold Steve Austin. We had The Rock, who was brought in as Rocky Maivia, who was, shaking hands, kissing babies and everything, hated it, was booed out of the building. His first major match, he was completely, I think they literally threw tomatoes at this man. Goes on to become the most successful box office star possibly in history at this point. And then 3H is brought in from... Do you have it on there, what he was in WCW?
I do.
He was terrorizing.
Oh, no, I don't have that.
Yes.
I just have Jean-Paul Levesque.
So Triple H, you can go back and check in WCW. I know they have some of it on the network. It's in his DVD, but he was terrorizing. It's a weird way they spelled it. They tried to give him an actual name like Terra, like terrorizing, and he was only there for a very brief time, and Sean and them saw him and loved his work that they did, so they brought him up, and yes, he got turned into Jean-Paul Levesque, the blue blood who would bow and everything.
With William Regal, right?
I think Regal was his manager for a while. And then what ends up happening is he, like they say, you take a guy and you turn that dial up a little bit from 11, and then all of a sudden you have this character who's going to be in charge of the company when hopefully, I don't know, the Grim Reaper remembers to come collect Vince's soul at this point.
Right.
But would you say that for WWE, at least for the modern times for us, and I'm sorry if I derailed you.
That's fine.
Would you think that those three would be the closest thing to a restarted character gimmick that we have gotten that has gone on to be the most successful that we've seen? Because some guys have altered a little bit. We've seen Ziggler go from, Spirit Squad to the Showstopper.
He was on this and I took it off.
Things like that. But he's still kind of been Ziggler for the most part. We really haven't seen somebody get brought in and then just flipped.
Well, let's see. We'll revisit this when we're done.
Okay, all right. We're going to circle back around to this because I'll tie that into our Facebook question that was asked about why does WWE hire people to not use them. So we'll come back to this in a minute because I want to ask Marshall. Marshall asked that question. We'll answer that in a minute.
So, Black Tiger 2.
I was going to ask you about some of these and I blanked.
The Black Tiger 2 gimmick is legendary in Japan as the original Black Tiger fought many huge battles as the Black Tiger Mask, creating a legacy of 6 other wrestlers that carry out through the years. The immediate successor of the Black Tiger was a man who had first risen to stardom in Mexico, one half of the infamous tag team Los Gringo Locos. And he was a member of one of the most famous families in Lucha Libre. But, leaving Japan for Mexico, he would bond on the Black Tiger persona and engage in some of the most memorable battles of his own, including the Best of Super Juniors tournament in 1996, defeating then Wild Pegasus,
Now, who is Wild Pegasus?
Chris Benoit.
Are we allowed to, we can mention him, right?
Yeah.
We're not on...
And the legendary
payroll yet.
Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yes.
Following his time in Japan, he spent some time and eventually got to WWE. Who am I referencing?
Who are you referencing?
I would never have gotten this. He...
It's not Hector, is it?
No, it's Eddie.
It's Eddie, yes.
Eddie was
Right.
Black Tiger, too.
Yes. He was Black Tiger, too.
I thought with
Right,
Wild Pegasus it would give it away.
Yeah, no, I could, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Who was Flex Cavana?
Was that Colt?
In the mid-'90s, a former University of Miami, Florida football player.
Oh, that's right.
Had been tolling away on the roster of the Canadian Football League. So no, Rocky Maivia was not his first persona.
Okay, all right. It just paintbrushed me up a little bit.
He was trying not to go on his family's legacy and trying to build a logo on his own.
Yeah.
And if you've ever read his book, which I have not, but I've heard stories, when he talks about when he was sitting in a van eating cold SpaghettiOs, that's because he was not refusing to lie into his family, and just trying to make it on his own.
Yeah, and the big thing for that too is that they weren't like super wealthy either. And if you want to know about Rock,
watch his show.
Watch Young Rock on, was it NBC?
NBC. I haven't watched it yet. Have you?
I haven't seen it yet, but I watched the trailer and it looks pretty good.
This man was brought in to be Jerry Lawler's dentist.
We just spoke about him. Mr. Glenn Jacobs later went on to become Kane.
So now
Isaac Yankem III or something. Yeah.
So this guy claimed to be a pickup truck and a Ferrari engine. This is really funny because I want to bring a comparison. Okay. He claimed to be a pickup truck and a Ferrari. He was a part of the second season of the original run of NXT. Made it all the way, but failed to win a contract. But he caught on to the CM Punk-led Nexus.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because we're talking about
a dead man. We're talking about a man who's dead.
Now, when I read we're talking about Bray Wyatt, but Husky Harris was not his first.
No, it was not. They've tried several times with
because his original character back in OVW was basic. It was. You said it just the other day. Mercy.
It's like Waylon Mercy. So very much the Robert De Niro, Cape Fear style character. Wearing the big, Florida button-up shirts and hats and everything.
So I watched. Sorry, I'm cutting.
No, you're good.
I watched like a history of that on the network. And he did a promo back in OVW.
Yeah.
That he did the promo on Raw a few weeks ago before he died. So I was like, damn. Anyway, so when I hear a pickup truck and a Ferrari engine, I immediately went to the moon.
Good old Cameron Grimes. We'll talk about Cameron here in a little bit.
Daskara Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Daskara Jr. is in prison for a long time where he belongs. Let's just leave it.
Don't go watch anything that he did, but watch Mirko Cro Cop kick his head into the 14th row in Pride. It's one of the most brutal knockouts you'll ever see.
He is a POS piece of shit, and I hope that he gets...
whatever comes to him.
Yes. So, this is funny. So, Kevin Nash...
He's been everything.
He's been Oz.
Yes.
He's been Vinny Vegas. He's been what was the other thing that he's been Diesel.
He's been Diesel.
But they're all really the same character, which we were talking about earlier. They're basically all kind of the same character.
I think I would say Oz is just awful. Well, also don't forget he was he was, what was his name when he was part of the skyscraper people? What was his name?
I don't know.
Do you not have it on there?
Nope.
Oh God!
He's part of the Master Blasters?
Yeah, when he was part of the Master Blasters, not the Skyscrapers. Yeah, oh God, that was terrible.
So it says here, we could have been so much meaner to Kevin Nash. We could have shown him as Oz, and we could have even dug deep and found a picture of him as one of half of the Mohawk Tag Team Blaster Masters.
Yep.
But they didn't say that. So they talked about his Vinny Vegas, gambler and lounge singer, who hung out with other superstars such as
DDP.
Scotty Flamingo.
Scotty Flamingo and DDP. Yeah.
And who is Scotty Flamingo?
Scotty Flamingo, unfortunately, is Mr. Raven.
And Diamond Stud.
Oh, Oh yeah, the Diamond Stud, man.
Yes.
I mean, that's
all right.
That's a rough section of those guys' life, man. I mean, it's no wonder that they basically chased him out of the business, and then on top of that, it's a wonder that they were able to do something with that and turn into the longevity of the characters that they are now.
Okay, this one I'm excited for. The Demon of Ohio Valley Wrestling.
I already know this one.
Leviathan.
The Leviathan, the Demon of the Deep, man. Yes, that
Member of the
is
Dominant Disciples of Sin.
one of the cast members of the highest grossing film of all time. We are talking about Mr. Dave Bautista. Yes. Did you ever see him as Leviathan? So I got to see him as Leviathan in OVW, and it's amazing that man is, one, he came in very old. You know, he had a great physique, obviously, and his story is very interesting. Like, the thing with Batista has always been, he had to be, like Cornette said, he had to be on top.
Yeah.
You can't have him in the bottom, because he can't work bottom. He has to be the main event. He has to come in on top, which is why when they tried to do Deacon Dave, and I agree, they put a stupid shirt on him and a tie, and they covered up his best asset. But when they took the shirt off, they let the tattoos and the big jacked up body go in. He really didn't have to do anything other than spine buster, powerbomb, clothesline.
Oh, what he does now.
And that's it. That's all he's ever had to do
All right.
is that. Because he's, you know, a lot of people get compared to Warrior, and a lot of people look at Warrior as unfavorable. But sometimes you just have to have that. It's like a Transformers movie. It's popcorn for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what Batista was. Is he's great popcorn for the first 5 rows, you know?
All right. So this particular wrestler, during his early days, he wrestled under the gimmick of the Prototype.
I thought we were going to go way far
A
back.
character who is implied to be at least partially robot. Designed to be the greatest wrestler in the planet.
This was
And
legit.
he wanted... Mostly, they just wanted to make fun of his frosted tips.
Yes, because he straight up had the spiked, blonde, frosted 1990 Power Blade and Nintendo cover on top of him. We were talking about the man you cannot see, Mr. John Cena.
So which wrestler actually got into a lawsuit with Marvel Comics?
Well, I know Hogan and them made an agreement to let him be the Hulk because Vince paid for it. And then, who got in an argument with... Is it Hulk?
Hulk Hogan.
Okay, yeah, but...
Sterling Golden or Terry Boulder.
Or Terry Belay.
It says Terry Boulder. Yeah, so they tried to actually originally call him the Incredible Hulk.
Yes.
And Marvel was like, look, we don't got a whole lot of money, because back then they didn't have a whole lot of money.
They really didn't. Marvel has been bankrupt, or on the verge of bankruptcy several times for it. And yes, they essentially did a licensing deal where Vince bought the rights to call him the Hulk, and they did a spot where Hogan was actually illustrated into an issue of Incredible Hulk.
Yes.
If I remember correctly. I don't remember the number, I apologize. It's probably somewhere around like 230-ish or so. I tried to find it a couple years ago, and it's not a terrible price book. Like, you can pick it up pretty easy. But yeah, there's actually a section where the Hulk fights the Hulk in a comic book, and he uppercuts him through a building.
All right, so we all know Mean Mark Callis was the Undertaker.
Yes.
So the following people were at one point in time Rosebuds.
This list.
Carmella.
Yep.
Simon Gotch.
Yep.
Elias. Elias was like he looked like Tugboat with his costume.
Oh yeah, he was awful.
And Braun Strowman.
I forgot Braun was one.
And I'm pretty sure Becky Lynch was too.
I think she said that in her DVD or her retrospective, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to skip those two for a minute. We all know that Booker T was once...
Booker T was once G.I. Bro.
Which is a song by Bad Bunny! Aldo Montoya. This guy started out as a mid-card star in the WWE before moving to ECW and becoming a main talent with that company's dying days. He got the gimmick in WWE and started it as a punchline thanks to the mask the company forced him to wear.
Wait. What's the name on this one?
Aldo Montoya, the Portuguese Man of War.
Is this Conan?
Justin Credible.
Just Incredible. Oh, yes. Conan was Max Moon.
Max Moon. I was saving that one for the end.
No, I remember that because he had that stupid cardboard robot thing that he came out in.
Here's the interesting thing about Conan said in an interview he created the gimmick for Max Moon himself, saying that wrestler was a cyborg from the future. The character was influenced by a Japanese anime cartoon he watched about a robot that shot confetti and fire. Conan said that Vince McMahon loved the idea, spent a lot of money on the costume, and then asked him to dance as a character. He also said that a mixture of jealousy from other wrestlers as well as his own discontent caused the company to fire him.
Yes.
And then when Conan left the company, the WWE took his Max Moon creation and made other wrestlers named Paul Diamond do it.
Yep. Yeah. That was... I remember seeing that outfit. It was awful.
Sparky Plug was?
Oh, Sparky Plug was Mr. Hardcore Holly.
And the interesting thing about the reason they named him Spark Plug is they screwed up and they wanted it to be an anagram of STP.
Yes.
But they
didn't have the rights to do STP, yes.
They also didn't have a T anywhere in there.
No. Well, no, it was Sparky Thurman Plug. That was his name, was STP Sparky Thurman Plug.
This wrestler started as an edgehead after getting famous on his own YouTube show.
Oh, is this Bro?
It is. Zack Ryder. All right. Johnny Polo was also Raven.
Was also, okay, yeah.
Okay. Lord Humongous.
This was Sid Vicious.
Okay.
I've seen this. I have seen this. It's awful.
All right.
Because they were trying to capitalize, for those of you who don't know, Lord Humongous was the big jacked up S&M guy in Mad Max.
Yes. It was exactly...
Sorry, Road Warrior.
All right. So we all know The Undertaker was once Mean Mark Callis. What was his other moniker from the early days?
Texas Red.
Okay. Yeah.
The Punisher.
This one
he was the Punisher. Then he was Mark
close.
Punisher Callis. What else?
Master of Pain.
The Master of Pain. Yes, that was the one. If you go back and watch our Undertaker show, where we talked about where he was being brought in as someone who liked Alice Cooper and rode bikes and listened to Ozzy Osbourne.
He was an ex-convict who just got out of the Atlanta State Penitentiary, serving 5 years for taking out 2 men in a fight.
Yep.
All right. So the last one for you.
Okay.
Save this one for last for a reason. Due to other obligations, this wrestler, Matt, wrestled under a mask and named himself simply the Spider because of his love for Spider-Man. And he felt like it was an homage.
An homage. Ooh.
Okay. And all right. So
okay,
I'll read you the story.
All right.
This wrestler had a dream of playing baseball. He was a star as a youngster, and the St. Louis Cardinals drafted him directly out of high school to play outfield. He played in the minor leagues for the Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, Chicago White Sox. It was during this time that he was trying to find a way to make some extra money. The problem was his minor league contract prohibited something like wrestling due to risk of injury.
Yeah.
He found a way around this. While playing minor league baseball, he wrestled in the off-season wearing a mask, calling himself the Spider to hide his identity. The entire gimmick was an homage to the Amazing Spider-Man. By the time his baseball career ended, he was good enough in the ring to go under a new name. And the rest, as they say, is history. He's a second-generation star.
Who loved baseball? Who would be up there? I don't know. You got me stumped.
And my sister, I was talking to my sister Wendy the other day.
Okay.
She actually has a picture with him on the baseball field. And I looked for his baseball card. Back when because he's doing spring training in Florida.
Who would be big on baseball? Pillman? No, it wouldn't be Pillman. Pillman played football for Cincinnati.
His dad's first name is Angelo.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Angelo Poffo.
Thank you. Fucking hell.
Which is why
yeah.
the him playing in Spider-Man is all that much more cool.
It's 9 o'clock, love. Oh, man. Okay.
I did get. You told me you thought I was going to go way back. I went way back to the last one.
That was pretty good. Man.
So,
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah. So
do you remember the Dynamic Dudes?
I do.
Who were the Dynamic Dudes?
I don't remember, but I remember them.
Okay, so the Dynamic Dudes would be a man who runs WWE right now, Mr. Johnny.
Oh.
And our pal who has a nice podcast, Mr. Shane Douglas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They were the Dynamic Dudes where they came out with skateboards and they looked awful and they hated it. And that led to the gigantic bed sheet that someone had that Cornette has told the wonderful story of that had gigantic written letters on it that said, Johnny sucks Shane's dick.
Nice.
And they had to cut around all that. And they had, like, kill Shane and Johnny, like, big bed sheets that people would hang up because they hated them so much.
So that is a little. Do we have any wrestlers that you asked the question? You posed the question. Are there other wrestlers that came from like garbage gimmicks that are on top of the world?
Well, I mean, I think Moxley
or completely different.
Moxley would be one of those where I think
he's been the same guy.
He's kind of been the same guy for a while, but he's definitely somebody who was lower down. A CM Punk would probably be someone who's evolved over time, who kind of started with one gimmick, but has continually used that gimmick into something.
Yeah, but the gimmick really hasn't changed, has it?
Yeah, so we were trying to really figure out if there was somebody who just, because when we talked about the show, we wanted to talk about people who maybe started one way and became successful a different way, or had a successful gimmick that turned that into something different. So what about, would you say, Ric Flair? Ric Flair had a completely different style. He had a completely different character when he wrestled, and then he morphed into this character, especially after the plane wreck where he broke his back and he had to completely change his wrestling style.
Right.
Would you say that Flair would fall into the category of he had a gimmick before he had a gimmick of being, the Nate?
I guess. But it really, I mean, to be honest, wrestlers in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
He was wearing tie-dye. He wanted to be superstar Billy Graham.
Okay, that I did not know.
Yeah.
No, I have only known Nate as the guy who bleeds all over the place with the little yellow. And
he had a completely different body. He had a completely different way that he worked. He did everything. He was trying to be superstar with tie-dyes and everything. And then, he got it into this long. He had the plane crash, changed his gimmick around, got into the feud with the original Nature Boy, took the mantle, and it's been that character since.
Here's a bit of trivia about Ric Flair that you may or may not know. Do you know if he was in a championship match? Do you know if you go back now and you watch the first 30 seconds of any match, you can tell whether or not he's going to win or lose? Within 30 seconds of watching the match, you could tell if he's going to win or lose.
Well, I know he never once. Anytime he pulled off that top rope move where he didn't get thrown off the top rope, I knew that something was going to happen.
Oh, no. You could tell in the introduction of the match whether he was going to win the match or lose the match.
Okay, tell me.
Apparently, if he was wearing, and I could be wrong, but if he was wearing blue tights, he was winning. If he was wearing red tights, he lost.
Huh.
Apparently, somebody did some research. If you go back in all of his matches, he wears a certain color if he's winning, and if he wears a certain color if he loses. Which is crazy.
I will do some research on that and let you know.
Call my bluff. Call my bluff. All right, so the last thing before we start talking about our wrestling.
All right.
One of our listeners wanted us to talk about the 2020 Dave Observer. So the Observer Wrestling Awards have been released.
Yes. We'll do that, and then we'll answer Marshall's question in
a
second.
So here's an interesting thing.
All right.
So Wrestler of the Year, Jon Moxley.
No.
Female Wrestler of the Year, Bayley.
Yes.
Tag Team Wrestler of the Year, the Young Bucks.
Fuck no. You can believe me on that one.
Most Outstanding Wrestler of the Year, Kenny Omega.
No.
Most Improved Wrestler of the Year, Britt Baker. No.
No. Honestly, Liv Morgan. I think Liv Morgan has gotten so good.
Yeah, but the problem is it was at the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
Most underrated wrestler of the year, Ricochet.
Absolutely.
Most overrated wrestler of the year, Bray Wyatt. No.
No.
I think we should go back up to
We should
Mega,
go
the
back up to
Bucks.
Kenny Omega. Yes.
How about the canned ham?
Oh yeah.
Rookie of the year, Pat McAfee.
I guess he's on the roster. Yeah. I mean, who else do they have that's really rookie at this point?
Best non-wrestler of the year. You got what's his face, Leon Ruff. Best non-wrestler of the year, Taz.
No.
Best-
Of course, this is going to be all
Yep.
AEW shit.
Best high flyer of the year, Ray Phoenix.
Okay. Yeah, Ray Phoenix has done some cool shit.
Technical wrestler of the year, Zack Sabre Jr.
Okay.
I'm not going to disagree with that one. Most charismatic wrestler of the year, MJF, without a doubt.
Yeah, I would say.
Move of the year, the One-Winged Angel.
No.
No,
Oh my god.
I would put that up against the Buckshot
Pull
any
the
day.
cock out of your mouth, Uncle Dave.
Feud
Come on.
of the year, Moxley versus Kingston.
No. No.
What would you say is feud of the year? I mean, that was a pretty good feud in there. I mean, with the interviews.
No, I don't think that's feud of the year.
What would be feud of the year? Pat McAfee and Adam Cole?
Yeah, because that started
Yeah.
around that time. So McAfee and well, the problem is that we're in COVID world,
Right.
So it's hard to pull together certain pieces of stuff.
Worst feud of the year. Remember, you can't. This is 2020, not 2021.
Yeah, no, I got you.
He hadn't died yet.
Okay.
Worst feud of the year: Bray Wyatt versus Strowman.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Match of the year:
No. I'm sorry. Worst feud of the year was Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio.
Absolutely.
That was the worst feud
Hands
of the
down.
year.
Match of the year: Omega and Paige versus the Young Bucks. I didn't watch it, so it was at a preview.
No, probably not. No.
Worst match of the year. I'm thinking. What about Paige? But I'm talking about Adam Cole versus Roddy. I mean, not Adam. Balor versus Roddy. Any of those.
Yeah.
Pick something from
I mean,
NXT Takeover.
Honestly, Volter and Ilya Dragunov
Right.
for me is the best match of last year.
Worst match of the year: Wyatt and Strowman in the swamp. I actually think the worst match of the year was the greatest wrestling match in history.
No, that was okay. I mean, come on. The cinematic fact, the fact that he murdered they pulled him under the water and there was blood and there was like a weird propeller like in Jason.
Best weekly show of the year. This is where it's going to get real. This is where we're going to just like slob it on.
Okay.
Best weekly show of the year: Dynamite.
No.
Worst show of the year: Raw.
Yes.
Promoter of the year: Tony Khan.
Fuck you.
Best promotion of the year: AEW.
Well, I gave them praise that they made it a year. So you know what? Best promotion of the year.
Worst promotion of the year: AEW. Or sorry, WWE.
No.
Yeah. See, you have to remember NXT is a part of WWE.
Well, I do know that, but you know what?
No, that's what I'm telling.
SmackDown also had some really good shows
I agree.
last year.
Worst major show of the year: WWE Super Showdown. Yes, absolutely.
Which one was Super Showdown?
Saudi
Was
Arabia.
that Saudi? Oh yeah. I couldn't remember if that was Superstar Spectacular was the India one.
Best show of the year was Revolution. Gimmick of the year: Orange Cassidy. Worst gimmick of the year: The Fiend. I disagree with that.
I disagree because people are behind it.
Yeah.
Whether we want it to be a thing or not, people are. And I can tell you this: on the WWE Shop Zone, his merch is usually sold pretty well.
Best announcer of the year: Excalibur.
Fuck off.
Worst:
Is he going to say? Is it going to be Graves?
Cole.
It's always Cole. Cole is awful.
Best-
I figured out, by the way. Remind me when we get to SmackDown to give you my revelation.
Best interview: Eddie Kingston.
No.
Best documentary of the year: Dark Side of the Ring. That's the only documentary, really.
I mean, would you?
And then his personal attack.
Okay.
Most disgusting promotional tactic of the year: WWE firing employees during a pandemic where they're setting profit records. Now, here's the interesting thing. So I'm going to hold this up for a second.
Okay.
Everything that is yellow is a worst of category in WWE. Everything that is green is a best of in WWE. Everything else that's not highlighted is AEW.
So
There's not a single worst of that's not WWE.
So, as we know, Uncle Dave's on retainer to make AEW look awesome. Did AEW have any worst of on there at all?
No.
It was all WWE sucks.
Yes.
Okay, and AEW is amazing, right?
Yes.
Because Dave writes for his listeners who are all AEW marks. And I'm sorry.
So, Marshall's question.
Okay. So, Marshall asked the question of, why does WWE hire people and then not use them? Now, I want to give my thought and follow along, okay? So, the thing I have with that is, I don't think WWE, hires people. We know WWE has done some malicious things, right? Like, not allowing people to go over in their hometown because Vince thinks it's funny. Or, randomly calling Howard Fink up to make him drive 3.5 hours to an event to then tell him that he's not needed. Yes, Vince can be cruel and the company can be cruel for things, but I don't think they hire people intentionally to take them off the chessboard because they're worried about other promotions. Because honestly, as we have seen, they don't consider other promotions a threat to them. They haven't. They say that, and they probably feel that way. Now, granted, the fact that we know that they're open on the stock market thing and they have investors to answer to, they probably do have to answer some questions. But Vince, at the end of the day, even going into the near bankruptcy that his company was in the 90s and midsection, he's always just viewed his stuff as the best show in town and the only show in town with that. So I don't think they take people off the board intentionally so they can't make money someplace else. I think the problem is that they hire people based on a skill set or merits or a buzz around them and bring them into the company. And Vince hires people based off of how you would hire an actor. Because he thinks if he can take someone like AJ Styles, right, and put AJ in the role that Vince wants him in, that's great. But what Vince doesn't have right in his own head is that Vince isn't hiring an artist to paint him a picture. He's hiring what he has them listed as, an independent contractor.
Right.
And he tells them, this is what I want you to do on my show. This is what you're going to do on my show. This is how much I'm going to pay you. Oh, you're not cool with that? Go someplace else. We're not going to use you. You don't have to be on the show. When your contract's up, you're out of here. Or he does, in fact, say, no, you can't leave. We're going to hold you up until your contract's over because we've invested so much in you. I think that's the problem that happens, is because we see a lot of guys on different shows, or they get a buzz around them from someplace else, and we go, man, if only they could be that on the big show. Mm-hmm. And then they get to the big show, and they're not that.
Right.
And I think that's the problem, is that WWE hires people wanting them to do a job based off of the merits that got them there, but then refuse to use the talents that they have that would make them good on that show.
I think you're half right.
Okay.
So, did you read Shayna Baszler's article?
No.
So Shayna Baszler was asked about her. They asked her on Open Podcast, one of the podcasts,
how she still has a job despite the fact that Rousey's not there.
Right.
And she just
basically. So
killed
she said.
Asuka.
So this was before she killed Asuka.
Okay.
And they were she was talking about how they said, "Hey, what happened to you? You're failing." Basically. And she said, well, here's the thing.
Wow, that's real nice of them to say.
So what happened to the Queen of Spades, basically, or whatever her nickname was?
Oh, so they want to ask about the article that essentially came up that said that Vince soured on Shayna Baszler.
Basically. So what happened is, so she was hot in NXT, and she was.
Yes, she was.
I wrote in here, whatever happened to, and was it last week or this week, that I was like, whatever happened to Shayna?
Well, she lost this week, so
yeah.
Okay, we'll say this week.
So, I'll probably, when we do SmackDown, you'll probably hear me say that again. So, it's like, what happened to this badass? And that was tearing it up in NXT.
I'll tell you what happened. They put her with Nia Jax.
So, she comes up to the show, and she was talking about a match that she had where she was with Natty. And they did their match, and Vince is like, love it, good shit, love it. And she's like, this is just basic chain wrestling. And Natty's like, yeah, I know, that's what he wants us to do. And she's like, but I want to be my character.
Yeah.
And so Natty's like, oh, hey, tell you what, you lead. We'll do our next match that's going to be taped. Back when they were doing the tapings for SmackDown.
Okay, yeah.
She goes, well, you lead the match. We'll do it your style. And they got into the style. They got about 5 minutes of the match, and Vince's like, quit it! Stop! Start over. What was that? Do it the way up, down, side, hip toss. What's so hard about this?
Uh-huh.
And so Shayna, they did the match the way Vince wanted it. And so Shayna said she had a meeting with him afterwards, like, hey, I'll be the person you want me to be, but I can do this. And he's like, yeah. Well, let's just stick with the basics and we'll work our way up. So she had to learn, like everyone else, and now I'll go back to answer your question.
Okay.
Vince hires these wrestlers like Aleister Black, King Puma, a.k.a. Ricochet.
Damian Priest, AJ Styles,
right.
The list goes on and on. Dear God, Ripley.
So he hires these people because he doesn't go to watch independent shows.
No, this is Pritchard and this is other
they're like, hey,
people
Vince, we got this great wrestler. He's doing great. All right, bring him in. Get his feet wet in NXT.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if Vince doesn't know that his son-in-law is not doing Vince McMahon things in NXT, because I don't think he ever watches NXT. Matter of fact, I know he doesn't watch NXT because I think it was Io Shirai was talking about how excited she was when she went up to the main, she took a couple weeks at the main show.
Yeah.
How exciting it was to meet Vince McMahon. She worked for the company for over a year.
Yes. I fully believe, that Vince does not
see NXT.
Yes.
So,
now, I don't think that's Vince is just blind to it. I like to believe that Vince has said, Hunter, this is your baby. As long as you don't go to here, play in this realm.
Right.
This is the pool you can play in.
So, if I was an independent contractor, aka wrestler, I'd never want to go to Raw or SmackDown.
No, that's why everybody wants that AEW money.
I would stay in NXT where I can do amazing things.
Well, unfortunately, you're not in control of that. A lot of times, you're getting brought up,
Yeah, and we'll talk about this again when we talk about Raw. Because
that's I think, essentially we're kind of answering the same.
So my question is, I think that I do not think that he's hiring people to just take them off the board. I think he's hiring them because people said, this guy will do great in our company, give him a shot, and then Vince doesn't give him a shot the right way.
Because we've talked about over the last couple of weeks it's not just the name I'm referencing a region, but AJ. We've talked about AJ is just doing the main roster stuff now. That's all he's doing. And that's what a lot of these guys, like Shane and stuff like that, that's what they're doing because that's what Vince sees. Vince only sees this match in his head. He doesn't see anything else.
All right, so that is our subject. We went a little long, but I think we had some good discussion. We brought up some cool stuff, and then we talked about the current situation.
And we answered some fan poll questions that we had as well, too, that we have been a little bit neglecting on because sometimes they'll pop up and we won't catch them.
So that concludes our main topic, which was the gimmick behind the gimmick and a little extra. So now we're going to move on to Impact and AEW.